All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And when I see the sign that points one way, the lot we used to pass by every day. Just walk away, Renee. You won't see me follow you back home. The empty sidewalks on my block are not the same. You're not to blame.
And welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in Niagara, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV. And if you'd like to find out about the programming we have available for you, 7/24/365 on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit www.xzbn.net. And for the programming on the X Zone TV channel, visit www.simultv.com, and when you get to their main page, there's a search engine. Just type in X Zone. My guest this hour, X Zone Nation, is Ronald Actis. He is a native of Depew, Illinois. He's been involved in organizational and community development in Indiana and Michigan for more than 40 years. Currently president of Actis Consulting, a management, organizational communications, and race relations consultant. He received a BS degree in management from the University of Illinois in 1962. The company's slogan, focused, measured, sustained human achievement. Joining me now is Ron Actis. And Ron, welcome to the X Zone.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.
Ron, you've authored a book called Spiritual DNA, What Jesus Said About God, Peace of Mind, Happiness, and Mankind. And you also wrote, I believe, Spiritual DNA Guidebook, Change Your Mind, Change Your Life, Management / Frontier, a communication system to focus and sustain a culture of achievement. I can understand where the latter book comes from, since you're in the management business. But where did the Spiritual DNA and Spiritual DNA Guidebook come from?
My sister gave me a copy of a book titled A Course in Miracles.
Mm-hmm.
And after I read the introduction, I could not put it down. It's a 1,200-page book. And, well, here's some of what was in the introduction. It's a fascinating story,
Mm-hmm.
background. In 1965, Helen Schuckman, who's a psychologist, or was a psychologist at Columbia University, began to have dreams and images that came out of her just from nowhere, just came out and started entering her mind. She told her boss, a man by the name of William Tetford, about the experience. And after 3 months of hearing about them, he suggested that she write a journal to record all of that she was hearing. Soon after, an inner voice began giving her instructions, and the voice said, "This is a course in miracles. It's a required course. Only the time you take is voluntary. Free will does not mean you can establish the curriculum. It only means that you can elect when you want to take it at a given time. The course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, but it does aim at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite." Now, she was quoted as saying, "I was very surprised when I wrote this. This is a Course in Miracles," Schuckman said. That was my introduction to the voice. She said it made no sound. It seemed to be giving me a kind of a rapid interdictation, which I took down on a shorthand notebook. The writing was never automatic. It could be interrupted at any time and later picked up again. She said it made her very uncomfortable, but it never seriously occurred for me to stop. So it seemed to be a special assignment I somehow, somewhere agreed to complete. So each day after documenting her experience, Schuckman would read her notes to Tetford, her boss, who would have them typed up from her dictation. According to an article that I came across in New Reality magazine at this time about another book, Journey Without Distance, which is the story behind A Course in Miracles, and a lot of what I'm going to share with you here, quoted her as saying, "The voice does not come from the outside. It's all internal. It's not an actual sound. The words come mentally, but very clearly. It's kind of an inner dictation. It's not automatic at all. I'm perfectly aware of what I'm doing." And Schuckman went on to say, she's an atheist, and that kind of surprised me when I heard that. Here she's getting words that she later decided are coming from Jesus. But she says, having no belief in God, I resented the material and was strongly impelled to attack it and prove it wrong. I remained unconvinced about its authenticity, and I was very jittery about it. It was impossible, put me in an impossible position of not believing my own life's work. And the situation was clearly ridiculous, she says, as well as painful, she claims. It was because of the strangely compelling nature of the authority that she referred to as the voice. She said, I don't really understand the authorship of the writing, but it had a certain sound of certainty and wisdom and gentleness and clarity and patience that characterized the voice, that she says at this point she realized that it was Jesus talking to her. And despite her reluctance to writing, she did not have the ability to eliminate the voice. And so this began her documentation. Over 7 years, she filled 30 shorthand notebooks of what she was hearing that her boss had typed up. And on one hand, she said she resented the voice because she was extremely fearful of the content and had to overcome great personal resistance in the beginning in order to continue because of her belief, or non-belief in God. This started to conflict with her. And on the other hand, she said it never occurred not to do it, even though she was resentful of the interference. So the voice would dictate to her almost daily, sometimes several times a day. And usually it would start at a time she was free from her work or at home or wasn't doing anything special. After 2 months of her listening and writing, she asked how long this text would be, and the answer she got was when it was completed, she would hear the final amen. Well, one night, Schuckman was taking down the dictation, and she felt agitated. I said to the voice that what it was saying was senseless, and the voice told her to write what she had heard and assured her that in the morning she'd understand the words. The passage in particular, she said, didn't make sense. Began with, forgive us our illusions, Father, and help us to accept our true relationship with you. It ended with, let us receive only what you have given and accept but this into the minds which you created and which you love. After sharing this with their boss at Tetford, the next morning he read it out loud, and he was barely able to speak at the end. And when he looked across at Schuckman, she burst into tears. They each recognized that this was recorded, was a version of the Course's Lord's Prayer. And though none of them said a word, they each felt a new unity with one another that they've never felt before. And so throughout this writing, the terror Schuckman felt at the beginning did gradually recede, but part of her mind never allowed her to get completely used to the idea of being a channel for the voice of Jesus. And for the most part, she was unbelieving and still suspicious and afraid. And then in 1975, Schuckman and Tetford met with founders of the Foundation for Parasensory Investigation. It became the Foundation for Inner Peace. And they showed it to the director, and they asked, do you want me to show the course to any of my friends? And they told her, no, we're sure the course is not meant to be kept hidden. It's just that we don't want our names connected with it in any way. And Schuckman agreed with him. And Tetford added, it doesn't need any personalities connected with it. He said, Helen and I do not feel we can represent this material since we don't adequately demonstrate it. I guess he was an atheist also. So I read through the book the first time, and it took me a year part-time to read through this book, 1,200 pages, and every sentence had a meaning to it. And every time I read it, the impression was reinforced. There was no doubt in my mind that the voice was that of Jesus. No person on earth could make up such concepts. And the authenticity of this was never disputed or questioned.
All right, stand by. We have to take our break at the bottom of this set. Ron Actis is our guest this hour, Exonation. And Ron and I will be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Niagara, Ontario, Canada. I'm Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
You're not to blame. From deep inside the tears that I forced to cry, from deep inside the pain that I chose to feeling better now that we're through. Feeling better 'cause I'm over you. I learned my lesson and left a scar. Now I see how you really are. You're no good, you're no good, you're no good. Baby, you're no good. I'm gonna say it again. You're no good, you're no good, you're no good. Baby, you're no good. I broke a heart.
Welcome back, everyone. Ron Actis is our guest this hour. His website is, are you ready for this, Exonation? outskirtspress.com/spiritual DNA. Ron, I have to ask you, how can everybody be so sure that this lady who was channeling this voice was actually channeling the voice of Jesus?
Because of, I'd like to read you some of the text in it and give you a sense of how he spoke at that time. It's so unusual.
Okay.
And nobody's ever disputed this. People have not questioned that this book is, the Course in Miracles is being used in seminaries, in different religious teaches, institutions all around the world. And the question never came up
I just
that
asked.
it was not Jesus.
Okay. I'm asking. How do you know it was Jesus?
How do I know it was Jesus?
Yeah. How does anybody know that the voice that was being channeled was that of Jesus? Did the voice identify itself as Jesus?
He never. Well, because of what he says in the book. Nobody could have made this up.
No,
Nobody could have
you're not.
put it in
You're
the
not.
terms.
You're not answering my question. Did that voice at any time identify itself as Jesus?
Yes, he speaks in the first person several times throughout.
And he said, "Okay," and the voice says that I am Jesus, the Son of Man, the Son of God.
Not in those words.
Okay, so let me ask again. How do we know that the voice was that of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, if the voice did not identify itself?
Well, he did identify himself because he talks about himself in the first person and God as his Father, and mentions several stories that are extensions of parables in the Bible.
Okay, so once again, I want to be clear on this for my listening audience and myself. This voice, talking in the first person, said that I am Jesus Christ. I am the Son of God.
He does say that in so many words.
No. You're skipping. You're doing. You'd make a great hockey player because you're doing some fancy skating here. The question again is, did the voice in the first person identify himself as Jesus Christ, the Son of God? Yes or no? Hello?
I would say someplace in the book those words have come out. Yes.
No. You've read the book.
Yes, I've read it 7 times.
Okay, and in those readings, the 7 times that you have read it, did the voice identify itself unequivocally as coming from Jesus Christ, the Son of God? Or is it believed based on the way the voice articulates itself and the knowledge that it has surpassing the biblical parables that only Jesus could know this?
It is spelled out in the book that he says that he is the Son of God. In fact, he goes a step further. He says, we are all sons of God.
Yeah, well, that's what it says in the very first book of the Bible, in the book of Genesis. And it says, and God said, let us create man in our image, in our likeness. Therefore, if God did create us, and he is our Father who art in heaven, then God is our Father. But I've never heard anybody identify themselves as Jesus Christ. And this is why I was kind of wondering if, in fact, in this book that was channeled by this lady, if the voice identified itself as Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Now
He identified himself as Jesus.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Why did it take about 6 minutes to get that answer?
I don't know. I thought I was being as clear as I could.
Well, I basically asked you a yes or no answer. Yes, he did say it, or no, he didn't say it. So you're saying...
Yes, well, then I apologize.
No, you don't need to apologize to me, my friend. I just needed clarity on it.
I see.
Yeah. Okay, so the book is written by somebody who channels Jesus, right or wrong?
The book was written or spoken?
Mm-hmm. Hello?
Yes.
You're hesitating with my answer, with my questions, and I don't know why. They're very simple questions.
What was the question again?
The question, which was also a statement, was that the book on miracles, A Course in Miracles, that you were given was channeled to this person. I believe it was Helen Schuckman. Am I correct there?
Helen Schuckman. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
By a voice that she channeled, who identified themselves as Jesus Christ, the Son of God.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Why did you give your book a new title?
I didn't think A Course in Miracles satisfactorily explained what was in the book, because it talks about... I've got a section here that talks about, in his voice again, what was written down, what a miracle is. And I didn't think that... I found more to be in the book about relationships with God and Jesus and other people and ourselves. It's about brotherly love. There are acts of love and kindness are described as miracles. And I didn't think just A Course in Miracles. When I first heard about it, when my sister gave it to me, I didn't hear about it, and I couldn't imagine what was in it.
Right.
I read it, and I went through this 7 times, and what I've done is I felt compelled to understand and break it down into basic elements, key sentences, to make it more... People who get the book have a hard time reading through it in the first place. It's very heavy reading.
Mm-hmm.
They have a hard time understanding what's in it. And what I've done is to boil it down into core beliefs. I identified 10 spiritual DNAs, dimensions that Jesus mentions in here about how you can increase your relationship with people by avoiding conflict. Life, he says, is a choice between God and your ego. The ego plays a big part in this. And so when that happens, your choice every day, if you choose your ego, you have a conflict in your mind. You feel guilty and anxiety and you worry. If you choose God, it creates a sense of peace. So that's why I've retitled the book, to give it a little bit more depth than just A Course in Miracles.
All right, so am I correct in understanding that you basically took the book, A Course in Miracles, and used the content of that book and rewrote the book based on the content of that book and renamed it because you thought that this would be much easier for people to understand and the way that you broke it down?
Yes,
okay.
I kept Jesus's, the words that I selected in condensing. I didn't edit it and put my words in it. I extracted from each chapter key paragraphs and sentences, and I boiled it down so that we ended up with a book that's about 350 pages. And it makes it easier for people to come to grips with this. Plus, by my breaking it down, I came up with key steps to happiness, peace of mind and happiness. I've identified the core beliefs in the book, 10 core beliefs, and this is what I put into the author's epilogue at the end, so people can take this and in a capsule summary, not have to go through the whole book again. The book is also made up of about 600 pages of text, about 400 pages of workbook for students. Lessons are in it, and then about another 100 pages that deal with what he called the manual for teachers.
All right, stand by. We've got to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Exonation, our guest this hour is Ron Actis. His website is outskirtspress.com/spiritual DNA. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
Stuck on you. Got this feeling down deep in my soul that I just can't lose. Guess I'm on my way. Needing a friend, and the way I feel now, I guess I'll be with you till the end. Guess I'm on my way. Mighty glad you stayed.
Exonation, Ron Actis is my guest this hour. His website is outskirtpress.com/spiritual DNA. What was your inspiration for rewriting the book from A Course in Miracles to the book that you retitled?
I felt that it was so important to help people understand it and to be able to actually use this in their daily lives. That was one of the motivations. I didn't start out, I read it 7 times. It took me a year each time. So from the time I got the book and the time that I developed more of an understanding after the 7th year, it was about that time that I thought maybe I should actually write something and do it in a condensed version, maintaining his exact words, but picking out what I thought were the most profound to me. And an interesting thing, when I decided that I was going to go ahead and try to get this written up and published, it occurred to me that the Foundation for A Course in Miracles had the copyright for it.
Yeah.
And even though I would attribute any rewrite to that book, I decided to request their permission to use these select passages. I received a response from them that same month informing me that the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York had ruled the copyright void. This was in 2004, and they released it to the public domain. To me, that was a sign I should move ahead. I got a clearance. Evidently, somebody was using this book besides the Foundation. They were having it printed and selling it. The Foundation took those people to court, and they ended up losing because when the manuscripts that Tetford typed up had been put together and the manuscripts were turned over to the Foundation for Inner Peace, or A Course in Miracles, they gave away copies free. By them doing that, the judge said in this district court, that voids any copyright. And so I figured this is a good time to move ahead. And that's what gave me the motivation to go ahead and publish my book.
Tell us some of the passages that you found so riveting that you just had to rewrite this book.
Okay, well, let me do this. Let me just give you a reading of the first chapter, The Meaning of Miracles, to give you how the voice of Jesus talked to Helen Schuckman. And then I've got another listing of what I pulled out of there. I have 99 of them that I went through again and picked out what I thought were the basic heart of the book, and I ended up with 99 just somehow. But let me give you just an idea of the meaning of the miracles. He starts out by saying, there is no order of difficulty in miracles. They're all the same. Expressions of love are maximal. The only thing that matters is their source. Miracles occur naturally as expressions of love. The miracle is the love that inspires them. Miracles are habits and should be involuntary. They are healing because they supply a lack. They bring more love both to the giver and the receiver. Prayer is the medium of miracles. It's a means of communication of the created with the Creator. Miracles are thoughts. They undo the past in the present and release the future. They are convincing because they arise from correction. They demonstrate it is as blessed to give as to receive. It's a way of loving a neighbor as yourself. These are key words of Jesus we hear a lot.
Yes.
They demonstrate it as blessed to give as to receive. It's a way of recognizing your own and your neighbor's worth simultaneously. Miracles make minds one in God. Miracles are natural signs of forgiveness, another key word that he uses throughout. Through miracles, you accept God's forgiveness by extending it to others. Now, the Holy Spirit is the mechanism of miracles. He recognizes both God's creatures and your illusions. He separates the truth from the false. The miracle acknowledges everyone as your brother and mine. The miracle is an expression of an inner awareness of Christ and acceptance of his atonement. A miracle is never lost. It may touch people you have never met and produce undreamed of changes in situations of which you are not aware. The Holy Spirit is the highest type of communications medium. When you return to your original form of communication with God by direct revelation, the need for miracles is over. You are a perfect creation and experience awe only in the presence of the Creator of perfection.
All right, let me stop you there for a second. Because if he's talking in the first person, why doesn't he say through me, Jesus Christ? And why doesn't he say my Father instead of referencing him as God?
Oh, he does throughout the book.
But you
yes.
but you didn't in that passage you just read.
No, it's not. This is the meaning of merit. This is chapter 1. There's 31 chapters in there that he says that throughout. I wish I could pull one out. Let's see here. Let me just look ahead at.
All right. Go ahead.
I am the only one who can perform miracles indiscriminately. You have a role in atonement which I'll dictate to you. Ask me which miracle you should perform. Under my guidance, miracles lead to highly personal experience of revelation. He says, lead us not into temptation means to recognize your errors and to choose to abandon them by following my guidance. You are free to establish your kingdom. Let's see. He goes on to say, the golden rule asked you to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Mm-hmm. This is the rule for appropriate behavior. So there are words throughout. He references that. I was looking here for something that's very specific that you're looking for.
But what I'm seeing here, and please don't take me wrong, is I'm hearing it one way, as somebody who's not claiming to be Christ, based on the mannerism of which the conversation is taking place. Now, if he would have said, to my Father, if he would have said through me, Jesus, that
he does say that in there. Yes, not in this particular chapter, but it's.
All right, but what I'm seeing here is it's all a matter of belief. You believe, and you have every right in the world to believe, that what you're reading comes from Jesus. You have that right.
Yes.
However, to me, someone who is by every stretch of the imagination very inquisitive, and someone who likes empirical proof, what you've read me so far, it's nice. It really is nice. It's filled with goodness. Can't take that away from that. But to me, it doesn't sound like whoever is saying this is really Jesus, because, number one, there was no proof for 6 minutes that this was written by Jesus. Now, if you would have thought at the beginning of the 6-minute questions that this was written by Jesus, you would have said at the first time I asked you the question, yes, Jesus wrote it. But you kind of did the NHL shuffle on that.
You were giving me specific words that
yes.
I didn't see, that didn't come to mind. Whether you asked me about those specific words.
Well, I asked you specific words that somebody like myself, who is a very devout Christian, would expect Jesus to say. And from what I heard, it didn't sound like Jesus to me.
Well, here's something else I found here. I have nothing that does not come from God. No man cometh unto the Father but by me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
He goes on to say, in the process of rising up, I am higher because without me the distance between God and man would be too great for you to encompass. I bridge the distance as an elder brother to you on the one hand and as a son of God on the other. There's words that I think answer your question, I think.
Not really, but you
But
and I have
that's
to
closer to
you
what
and
you were
I
getting
you
at.
and I have to take a break. We'll be back on the other side of this fine
All
words
right.
from our sponsors. And when we come back, we'll be wrapping up this hour here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, and our guest this hour, Ron Actis. Don't go away.
Got this feeling down deep in my soul that I just can't lose. Guess I'm on my way. Needing a friend, and the way I feel now, I guess I'll be with you till the end. Guess I'm on my way. Mighty glad you stayed.
I see you each morning, and in silence I say, pretty lady, I love you, but I know there's no way that you'd consider my love, girl, 'cause you don't have the time. So I try to conceal it, so you can't read my mind.
Welcome back, everyone. Ron Actis is our guest of this final segment of the X Zone for our episode number 2 tonight. If you'd like to find out what's available to you 24/7, 365 on the XZBN, visit www.xzbn.net. And as I've been saying all night, the new edition, the February-March edition of the X Chronicles newspaper, is now available with our compliments at www.xchroniclesnewspaper.com. That's xchroniclesnewspaper.com. Ron Actis is our guest, and if you'd like to find out more information about Ron, here's his website, www.outskirtspress.com/spiritual DNA. You talk about spiritual DNA. What is the spiritual DNA that you reference?
In the book, The Manual for Teachers, he talks about certain characteristics that teachers of God, he calls them, not formally teachers in the form of an educator, but he mentions 10 dimensions of characteristics of people who are in tune with God. The first one is trust. And what I've done is I've turned that over. I call the characteristics spiritual DNA. If everybody would have trust, honesty, joy, tolerance, gentleness, defenselessness, generous, patience, faith, and open-minded instead of ego thoughts, a person would eliminate conflict from his mind because it would not, because they would be in tune with other human beings. And I've developed a self-assessment based on those 10 dimensions, where somebody can go through and self-appraisal, answer certain questions, and I've been able to quantify those and plot them on a chart to show a profile of what a person's spiritual DNA, how strong they are in each of these 10 dimensions.
Let me ask you something here before we go on any further. Do you believe that God created each and every one of us and that He is our Father?
Yes,
Okay.
I do.
But if we are flawed, doesn't that mean that God did not do a very good job of parenting? Or that his creation was flawed?
Jesus said in the book that we are born perfect. However, the way that we are raised, where we were raised, all the emphasis of the media, everyday environment, has caused us to forget that we're perfect. Now, if we were perfect, everybody in the 10 dimensions I mentioned would score themselves high. But we don't. That doesn't happen because our environments change that, because we act out of what people think, how people think we should behave, rather than we think is right.
But once again, if God is perfect, and if God created us in his image, that means we would be perfect as well. The fact that we're not perfect and that we're influenced by free will, we're influenced by the media, this, that, and the other thing. The media is controlled by humans that, if we take this hypothesis to the greatest degree, we're also created by God. So in an imperfect world, that relates to an imperfect creator.
We don't, we're born, Jesus in this book talks about that in the way that a father does here on earth. We create children. As they grow up, we try to teach them all the things that they need to know.
Right.
In the process of doing that, they are taught directly or indirectly through these other mediums, through other people, and so on. And Jesus said it's kind of the same way, but then as they grow up, they go out on their own. And we tried to raise them perfectly. However, nobody's perfect. They haven't gotten to that point.
But isn't God perfect?
God is perfect, yes.
So,
which brings me, let me mention the 10 core beliefs here, because the first one is, these are the 10 core beliefs that I pulled out of the book.
Okay,
God, who created me in his likeness, is perfect and without desire to attack.
Well, wait. Okay, let's just hold that one for a second there, because in the Bible, there are many examples where God killed his own children. You've got Sodom, you've got Gomorrah, you've got the Egyptians who were chasing Moses through the sea. God closed the waters on the Egyptians, and if God is the Father, he killed his own children. There is another example of a flaw of what is supposed to be a perfect deity. How can you tell me, thou shalt not kill, and then you yourself go out and kill? Does that make sense?
I don't agree with you, though. You mean God?
Yeah.
God has killed?
Well, sure he has. Well, like I was saying, he destroyed the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. He killed the Egyptians who were following Moses through the sea when he separated the waters. The Israelites following Moses got right through, but all the Egyptians were drowned. Now, if God is the ultimate creator, he would be the creator of the Egyptians as well. And yet, he killed those Egyptians who were following Moses. So, to me, that shows another flaw in the idea that God is perfect. The God of the Old Testament is totally different than the God of the New Testament. And if there is only one God, there should be some consistency with the way he acts, I think.
Well, you can believe that, certainly.
But I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead.
With this, and in a way, that's why I wrote the book is concentrated on helping people to achieve peace of mind by living better with one another, loving one another in a brotherly fashion,
Mm-hmm.
and the basis for this is a mind training course where Jesus in the workbook section for students
Mm-hmm.
takes you through a thought process that has you seeing the world the way you see it now, and in the sequence, by the end of it, you're seeing the world in a different way. You're seeing it more as one, that we're all one
Mm-hmm.
with God, and our behaviors, but we have egos. That's a driving force throughout this book, is that we have choices to make every day. We can make a choice according to our ego with pride and whatever else goes there,
Right.
or we can act more along the lines of love and in harmony in brotherly fashion.
But isn't it a fact that the churches are failing miserably because the church has not kept up with the modern times, and that people are seeking alternative philosophies in order to find some semblance of peace, harmony, and hold hands and sing Kumbaya around a campfire?
I would say that I agree with you. The churches are struggling right now.
But
true.
then I go back to my question. If God is perfect, how could his churches fail?
Because people are acting out of their ego.
But we were created by God in his own image, in his own likeness. Therefore, if we fail, that means the Creator failed in his creation. You and I have to say so long for tonight because we've run out of time, and X-Zone Nation. Here's another example, How do you know this guy who this person was channeling, who basically had voices in her head, was Jesus? We don't know. He was so indecisive giving his answers. I don't believe it. I really don't. And for those of you who were listening who may have been offended by what I was saying, I certainly didn't want to offend any of my listeners. But in today's society, and I nearly said this, but I want to be polite, the Bible also tells us to be very wary of false prophets. We'll be back on the other side of this break as we wrap up this hour here in the X-Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in Niagara, Ontario, Canada.